Some people might wonder how I pick my films, and the truth is that I kind of do it random. I go online and I research like films, or I just go on Netflix or something, and I kind of just pick it at random. And Five Element Ninjas is one such film that I went into not knowing anything about the film. And let me just say, holy crap. Five Element Ninjas is a 1982 Hong Kong martial arts film directed by Chang Cheh, who is the Shaw brothers, so it's a Shaw movie. And it's about a Chinese martial arts school that is has a rival school, and they in the very beginning they end up fighting, participating in a 10-man challenge. So there's like 10 fights, and the winner gets to be like the martial arts leader of that area or whatever. And it turns out that the quote unquote good guys, I guess, the good school, actually beat the bad school and were able to take the position as the lead martial arts school. The rivals, however, then went to hire a ninja clan, or like a ninja school, and that's where the Five Element Ninjas comes from. So they hired these ninjas to go take over the school, and they basically succeed. They wipe out almost everybody. One guy survives. Who's the star? Tien, and he's the lone survivor. Spoiler alert. I try to do these without spoiling too much because I really want you guys to watch some of them. And so he ends up finding his old master and learns some ninjutsu along with three brothers, and they go to have revenge against the ninja school. And they go and have a rematch against the Five Element Ninjas, which are basically five different elements. There's gold, wood, water, fire, and earth. And initially when they fight them during the initial challenge, they end up losing. But then they get a rematch with their own ninjutsu skills, and holy crap, that's probably the best part of the movie. Is the final like 20 to 25 minutes or so when they have their rematch and then they fight the boss at the end. And that's what I would recommend this movie, not solely on, but a huge part of, and I do not want to spoil it for you guys, but I may have to. So that's the overall plot. What do I think of it compared to other Shaw movies? It's got the gore, it's got the effects, and it's got the fighting, and I'll kind of go into that right now with my scoring. So the story was kind of above average. It wasn't boring, but during the middle, there's something about these martial art films where in the middle they kind of just either drag on or there's a lot of talking. And at one point, one of the only female ninja actually becomes a spy and enters the martial arts school under disguise, and she ends up kind of just talking and flirting, and they have this weird love triangle thing going on, and it's kind of unneeded. I don't know if they spent too much time on it, but it just didn't add anything. But the overall story was actually decent enough, so I give that a 7 out of 10. The music was also decent. For a Shaw movie, I'm kind of expecting a certain level now of music that they offer, and I think maybe some of it's recycled. I can't really tell because there's so many of them, but it was above average. I mean, it did its job. It had its high points, it had its low points. There were a few occasions where there were scenes or just small 10-second clips or something that didn't have music at all, and I thought that was because the ninjas were operating in stealth, like there wouldn't be any noise, like no, but you don't hear wind, you don't hear like footsteps, I guess. You don't hear them. I don't know. It just seemed weird. There were a few instances of that, but it was still overall average, so I give it a 7 out of 10. It's still good for a Shaw movie. The effects. Now, the set designs I am incorporating now into effects because sometimes they play a larger role in the movie. And while the set designs you could clearly tell are staged, but they at least were appropriate and they made sense for the film. And yeah, you can tell it was kind of cheesy, but it worked. However, the fighting effects, the blood and gore, those were superb. The only thing I didn't really like was, again, how bright red the blood was, and I'm not sure if that was just so it would show up easier or that was just something from that time period. But everything else, I mean, holy crap. Especially those final 20 minutes, the gore and brutal death scenes and just like fighting and the amount of like weapons used is just absurd and ridiculous. So I have to give it a 9 out of 10 on the effects. it's just, I would have given it a 10 out of 10, but because the blood was so bright red, and maybe it's some kind of like thing they did, especially for like Hong Kong films or something, I'm not sure, but it was still good. Now the fighting, this probably is, I may regret this later, but I am giving it a 10 out of 10 on the fighting alone. The fight scenes, the amount of weapons are used, the amount of people dying, the amount of 1v1s, 1v2s, 2v1s, 3v3s, 4v4s. I mean, you name it. They have every single type of fight imaginable in this movie covered. And because it's both Chinese and Japanese schools kind of fighting each other, you get a huge plethora of weapons and skills, and oh man, it's ridiculous. I couldn't even think of anything negative regarding the fighting, except maybe because of the time period, some of the attacks or weapons seemed a little off, or you can tell it's fake, but, or that the weapons are tinfoil or something, you know. But for a Shaw movie, and for this time period, and the overall amount of content you get, I have to give it a 10 out of 10. So that actually gives me an overall score, and I'm going to keep it high. It's a 9 out of 10. I was going to go for an 8, but I just couldn't give it an 8. I have to give it a 9. Just everything worked really well. The only reason I'm not giving it a 10 out of 10 too is because the middle just got a little boring. Just when they had the girl show up and she was kind of flirting and had that weird love thing going on, that just seemed a little off to me and kind of was unneeded. But overall, I would highly recommend this film to almost every martial arts enthusiast. Now, it came out in 1982, like I said, so it's not too old, like with the 60s or 70s, but it's not too new, like when the 90s and 2000s hit and they started changing things and had more CGI. It's right in that sweet spot that I think are going to be some of my favorite movies. So if you're a Shaw movie fan, watch it. If you're a martial arts movie fan, watch it. If you're into ninjutsu and ninja techniques and just over-the-top violence, I guess, I would recommend it. I can't really say enough about it, and I hope to see more like it in the future.